Hello and welcome to this COMP3218 game design and development video from the University of Southampton. Today we are going to be looking through some more of our students' courseworks. My name is Tom Blount. I am one of the lecturers on the course and I am joined today by...
Hi, my name is Dan Hobson. I'm one of the demonstrators on the course.
So, normally these courseworks are done in groups of 2 or 3. Today we're going to be looking at some of the submissions done by individuals for various reasons, so we'll be keeping that in mind as we're going through the mark scheme. But before we get to that, Dan, can you tell us a little bit about what we asked the students to do?
Yeah, so for this piece of coursework, we were particularly interested in seeing something that demonstrates a clear core dynamic and also something that tells you a tutorial as you play the game. Learn how you play through playing.
Fantastic. So, without further ado, let's take a look at our first game. Alright, and our first game is Square Dance. We are a square, you can see, because we are labelled.
You can dance, yeah.
Yeah. Move, WASD, jump, space, enter door, E.
And the door's even labelled. So
W doesn't seem to do anything, but space sure does.
Yeah, so it's actually A, D, and space, not W, A, S, and D. But...
That's alright, we're not going to nitpick that much. Although, if I am nitpicking, I wonder why I've got to press E to activate the door rather than just going through.
Unless we find some level where we have to go past the door and then come back or something.
That's exactly what I was wondering. But look at this, flip gravity. So if I tap the arrow key, ooh.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so we're seeing the unique selling point of this game. There we go. Up, down, up, down.
With sound effects on each one as well. Yeah.
Yeah. W does do something because when gravity's this way.
So that's interesting. It's global coordinates, not the fancy name egocentric coordinates. So A always goes to the left of the screen, no matter which way you're nominally facing, I guess.
Which I think is exactly how I would want it. Could you imagine trying to navigate this otherwise?
Well, in this coursework, Dave and I saw a game with somewhat similar mechanics, and we found there that the difference between moving left and shifting gravity so that you fall left often have the same effect. So the control scheme can be quite hard to learn because there's 2 ways of achieving everything. We'll see how you get on with learning the interactions between W, A, S, and D and up, down, left, right.
The jump is definitely somewhat suddenly now I'm jumping to the right is a bit weird for my brain, but otherwise, let's see, can I? There we go.
Yeah, one of the things is because the only way that you can tell which way gravity currently is by remembering which one you've most recently pressed. When you do your jump, you have to know in advance which way gravity is to predict that jump.
Yeah, so I was previously wondering, what are these stars for? Like, it seems a bit difficult to not get 3 stars, and look at me, I've not got 3 stars.
Yeah, so obviously getting to the end will be a kind of completion. You might automatically get 1 star just for doing it. Can we figure out what the other 2 are going to be? Is it number of times you flip gravity? Is it going to be a timer? Is it going to be something else?
It might just be if you die a lot, you get fewer and fewer stars. I feel like I might have skipped the puzzle on this bit.
Yeah, I guess they were expecting you to send gravity upwards, whereas you sent gravity to the right and just dodged it.
Yeah. Can I? No, I can't. Just trying to figure out, could I change gravity as I was... What's the word? I can't change things while things are mid-air. This is going to go badly, isn't it?
Yeah. Given that there's a sort of hook section in the middle, that's probably your safe space if you want to throw blocks around while being protected. But...
Wait.
Does that actually help?
There we go.
Jump off. Yeah, nice. It's quite an appealing backing track as well. It's simple, but suits the theme of the game.
Immediately 0 stars. Ooh, yeah. Moving blocks get stuck on sticky blocks. Be careful not to stick them in the wrong place. R to restart. Sticky block, moving block.
Yep, nicely labelled. Good that they've told us we've got R to reset, and maybe quite nice tutorial that it's introduced at the moment where you expect players to start needing to reset over and over again. So I guess the key here is that in order to get to the exit door, you need to make your moving block stick on the top side of your sticky block.
Yeah, I can't just... I was wondering if I'd just be able to jump into the door, but no, so I think I have to reset. Well, just as we're talking about the jumping, the jump feels really good. Like, it doesn't feel floaty at all. It is, like, tightly mechanically tuned.
Yeah. And actually, the choice of the sound effect elevates that, right? Because the sound effect is... Phew! And that kind of follows the path of the jump, right? Up and down again.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay, sticky block, moving block. So I need a block to be here, but I don't want to stick it there. Because if I just do this, oh no, I blocked everything. So how do I get around this one?
Yeah, it's not possible to push the blocks, so you can't arrange them in a flat configuration.
Hang on, if I do... No. Oh no. It's going to be one of those games where I sit here struggling for.
Well, interestingly, it's a game where I sit here and also try and solve it, and I struggle as well, and then we both say nothing.
Oh, I can stick to the sticky block.
That's quite nice.
Genius.
Yep. Oh, okay. That was actually the solution, or actually a solution.
It was a solution. I don't know if it was the solution, but I sure solved it. Beware of spikes. Okie doke. This feels a bit easier than the last puzzle, to be honest. But hey, 3 stars. I'll take 3 stars. Okay, now we've escalated again. So they took a second to give us something. I'll change in midair.
Can you just gravity down now and stand on the moving block to keep you safe?
I'm not sure what keeps killing me there. I think I keep sort of glancing the moving block as it lands.
Which will count as it crushing you.
Yeah.
I'm quite impressed that we're on level 11, given that, as we mentioned in the intro, there's been only one student working on this.
Yeah, that is worth mentioning. You are quite right. Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. Oh, even more. And now we're starting to see the combination of spikes and moving blocks and sticky blocks all coming together to solve perhaps a very complicated final puzzle, or penultimate puzzle. Now you're going to need to get those moving blocks up near the door. I don't know if you need them on top of the sticky block or stuck against the left wall.
Okay. Can't stick myself to the sticky block.
Well, the sticky block isn't by the door, so if you do get stuck, you'll be stuck. Unlike the other one.
You're right that it would be great if there was something that showed me which direction gravity was going. Because even though I should know, because I'm stuck to this block, something about my brain doesn't process it very well. Maybe if I just sort of rotate my head every time I press an arrow key.
it is true that they've got words on all the blocks here, right? So perhaps the easiest way of implementing that would be the word U faces downward according to whichever way gravity currently is. That looks nice.
Yeah, but I don't know how I get out.
Gravity left, jump on the block, fall onto the sticky blocks.
Oh, yep, there you go. Look at you thinking with portals.
There we go.
Hey!
Amazing. So, thanks for
Nice.
playing the demo. This sounds like that was our final level. So we'll go through another time and look at the marks criteria as we go.
Brilliant.
We start at the top of the mark stream, as we always do, on the quality of the presentation. What about the graphics, the audio, and the information design?
So, as I always say, you know, we're not judging the graphics themselves so much as the way that they're all put together, and I always use an example of you can make a surprisingly compelling game with just a bunch of squares with writing on, and what do you know, I've been proven right again.
Yep, exactly. Very simple graphics, but still effective. In fact, you know, depending on your own personal taste, you might even call it appealing. Audio, I would say, as we've gone through, we've heard the backing track, we've heard some of these sound effects. Certainly the Gravity one is the most important. We just heard the end of a level sound effect. Did we get things like spikes and getting crushed might have had a...
I don't actually know. Let's find out.
Let's try and get crushed.
We get a you failed noise.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'd say we've got some nice audio overall. And information design. We're told what level we're on. We're told how many times we've reset. We did mention that we don't know which way gravity is currently going, which is maybe one thing that's missing.
Oh wait. Yeah, I think that is the only bit of key information design that I feel like I'm missing a bit.
It's clear, obviously, that the exit door is an exit door, and so on. That the end of a level screen tells you everything about how you performed the level, which is good. So I would say the information design is good as well here.
It's maybe not obvious how many, what the relation from stars to resets is. Is it every reset costs me a star, or is it if I do it within, you know, X, Y, or Z? But
since I can see their document, I can read out for you. The number of stars achieved depends on how many times the player had to reset the level, but we don't actually say for sure whether it's every one reset costs you a star or not. But
yeah, that's what I mean. Is it 1-to-1 or is it something else? But okay, so I would say I would agree we're easily at the good level, like professional, complete, and effective graphics. I think maybe even. I would say maybe partway to the excellent. Like, there's a few bits of information design that I think would improve it. Primarily, like maybe a background effect showing, like, you know, which direction gravity is currently going. But otherwise, I think it's really nicely put together.
I'd agree. We're close to the excellent. We'll end up halfway between good and excellent. Very nice. So next is mechanics, controls, and bugs.
I haven't spotted any bugs other than I occasionally sort of, you know, graze a moving block and that counts as dead. But beyond that, seems to work pretty nicely. Oh wait, I could just stick myself to the block, couldn't I?
Yeah, and I think that might be the only solution to this one.
Is there a special noise for dying to spikes? No. But yeah, I mean, I already complimented the jump in particular feels really good, as does kind of the moving, like the way everything sort of bounces around. In terms of mechanics, we've got obviously the gravity flipping, we've got moving, jumping, we've got the moving blocks, we've got the sticky blocks, we've got the spikes. There's probably more you could do with this kind of puzzle, like more different types of blocks, more other kinds of features. But again, for the work of one person and the fact that they've combined them all in plenty of interesting ways, I would say, you know, again, this probably hits a good at least. We've got multiple mechanics, smooth controls, reasonable complexity. I think we're kind of, again, I think we might even be partway to an excellent again, because the mechanics that they've got work well together. They maybe could have expanded it to include a few more like different types of puzzle.
Yeah, I would agree with all those things. Maybe, given in mind that it's one person's work and the limited scope, if we were asking for one more mechanic, we might ask specifically for a sticky moving block or something, because they've already implemented sticky and they've already implemented moving. So that might have been the one extra thing to just make the scope even slightly bigger without doing too much extra work.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think between good and excellent is still a very good set of mechanics, controls, and bugs.
Okey-doke. So that takes us on to how well it fits the brief, starting off with their overall level design.
Yeah, goals, risks, rewards. Goal is very clear. It's got the word exit door written on top of it. And then on top of that, you clearly want to do as many of these puzzles as you can.
What about risk and reward? So risk versus reward is... So here's the thing, right? I like that they've included stars. That's a nice extra goal of do it with as few deaths as possible. But there isn't really a risk versus reward aspect to it. I'm either good enough to get them or I'm not good enough to get them. It's not like I'm deciding, oh, I'm going to do something extra complicated to try and get the star and risk dying a bunch or something like that. Or, you know, the stars make for a nice reward or a nice goal, but there isn't necessarily that element of risk to it.
Yeah, I'd agree. The stars are good. They're part of the goals rather than part of the reward. I guess in terms of how the level design would implement some risk and reward here, we would probably be looking at the way that you use the spike, in particular here in the moving blocks here, where you might have two different ways of getting to the exit door. One of them is tricky because it's got a lot of spikes and moving blocks, and the other one is harder, but it costs you something else. If you were tracking how many times you flip gravity or something, you could make that easy route cost many flippings of gravity, and that would be therefore not risky, but also not worth as much reward.
Yeah, exactly. Or kind of, as you alluded to earlier, like have 1 star for number of flips, 1 star for time, 1 star for number of deaths, and then if you're going for the time star, then are you going to be able to do it in few enough things or so on, like that, where they work together in that way. So if we have a look at the mark scheme, I would say we've got a clear and coherent goal and reward. I don't know if we have the risk associated with it, so I feel like that puts us sort of between a satisfactory and a good for that.
Yes, I think so. Overall, yeah, between a satisfactory and a good.
So
pacing.
In terms of pacing, I mean, it definitely rises over time, right? We go from just jump over some blocks to spikes and moving blocks and sticky blocks. Like the mechanical intensity does ramp up, but they introduce us, and we'll talk about this when we get to the tutorial, they introduce each of those things in kind of a nice way. When I first started playing through this, I was worried that like this level and the next one don't really change much in complexity or difficulty. So I was worried that this was, as complex as it would get. I feel like maybe these 2 levels back to back feel maybe a little bit flat, but maybe they're just trying to make sure, that we've introduced a gravity flipping mechanic. We want to really sort of hammer that home before we move on to actually making difficult puzzles.
Yeah, I think it's slightly connected to the goals, risks, rewards there, where the thing that's being tracked is how many times you reset. But if it was, as you were mentioning, you get more stars for flipping gravity fewer times. That sort of zigzag puzzle, you can either go up and down and up and down and up and down, or you can just flip gravity to fall to the right and then slide, and you do it in one single gravity flip. So they would have been able to differentiate those 2 things in that second level, which would have kept it feeling slightly less stale.
Yeah, exactly.
But certainly, as we went through the first time, we noted that it's actually easier to solve the first spikes puzzle. However, because the spikes themselves are nominally scary, I think that still works quite well with the tension rising over time. It looks like it's going to be an escalation, and mechanically it's not so much of an escalation, so you're able to kind of successfully put those things together. It both promises the scary in the future, which we see in the levels that come after it, and it gives you a bit of a respite mechanically on...
Yeah, so... would you say the tension clearly rises over time? I think I probably
Certainly.
would. Like, there's definitely a bit in the middle where maybe it's a little bit flat. But it's definitely rising over time. Would you say it is rising over time in a coherent pattern, or a coherent and well-balanced pattern?
I think coherent, but not always well-balanced. So I'd probably put this at the good level.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that for kind of the reasons we've just discussed. Okay.
Okay, lovely. Let's talk about the tutorial then.
Let's. So, we. I don't know if there's a way to. No, I don't think there's a way to go right back to the start, unfortunately. So I will just rapidly get through this set of puzzles, and then we can start looking at it again. But from when we went through it, we've got quite a nice gradual introduction to the main controls, and even in the first level, when it's just here are your standard platformer controls, they do it in such a way that it's like you've still got to jump over a block before we'll let you get to the end.
Yeah, and of course that block in the first or second level becomes tall enough that jump isn't enough to get you across it, so you need to use gravity to successfully solve that level before you can move on. So, certainly I would say we have a gradual explanation of gameplay and controls somewhat aligned with play. Do we think the tutorial is fully aligned with play? Do we think that it's fully aligned with play and possibly also communicated through level design?
It's definitely aligned with play, but there we go. We can start looking at it as we go. So we get small block, and then we have to show our precision jumping by going from small block to medium block.
Mm-hmm.
The flip gravity, again, like you say, sort of nicely introduces it. It doesn't just say, oh, and also you can flip gravity. It makes you use it. It makes you demonstrate that you've understood it. And then as we go, again, these ones don't introduce anything necessarily new, but they enforce that core mechanic. So yeah, I would say it's definitely aligned with play.
And we were saying in a couple of those, communicated through level design, it certainly was on level 2. It wasn't so much on levels 3 and 4. It's, I would say, somewhat, again here, that block that's specifically going to shield you. Why is it there to shield you? Well, specifically, the thing we're supposed to learn here is about the crushing. So
Yeah.
I think this is another good example of communicated through level design.
In a way, it's almost a shame that they sort of spelt this out. If they'd have just also had a bunch of moving blocks and set the puzzle up in such a way that, okay, our immediate reaction is to flip gravity so that we can get to the exit door, but then, oh no, then we get crushed by a bunch of blocks. Then we have to start thinking about looking at the level, saying, oh, there's that block, making sure we can solve the puzzle that way. That would sort of teach it entirely through the level design. I don't think it's quite there.
To get it entirely through the level design would hit the praiseworthy category. I think we're either at the excellent level for sometimes communicated through level design, or possibly just below the excellent level, depending on how many of these levels you feel do meet that sometimes communicated.
I think they probably do hit the excellent for that.
Okay.
Which brings us to core dynamic. So I think there's a pretty clear core dynamic here. Let me know if you agree with me. But also, let's see what they said.
Yeah, and I'm going to compliment the student here. The document they've turned in is very clearly formatted. They say right at the top, the core dynamic of this game is spatial reasoning, line break, and then some explanation why every single one of their mechanics helps reinforce or implement the spatial reasoning aspect. That's really well explained and really clearly presented. Thank you very much. That makes my life easy.
Cool. I mean, yeah, there's not a lot to say, right? It's definitely spatial reasoning. All of the mechanics, especially the ones they mention, all do tie into that. It's all about, here's a space, puzzle your way through it, reason about, oh, if I move this way, what's that going to do to the blocks and the sticky blocks and so on. Yeah, it definitely all pulls together in that kind of a way. I mean, which sort of immediately says it's at least at the good, because it's a clear core dynamic supported by the primary mechanics. Same as before, would we say it's like an integrated set of mechanics?
I would say it's mostly an integrated set of mechanics. I don't think it's up at the praiseworthy category, because getting either the praiseworthy category or halfway to the praiseworthy category, we'd probably expect these mechanics to interact. Like, we'd expect spikes that can fall, or spikes that are sticky, or moving blocks that are sticky, or something like that.
Yeah.
I would probably put it in the excellent.
But excellent is still the integrated set, right? Praiseworthy is where it has a secondary supporting mechanic.
Yeah.
Which
so I guess we may be almost at the integrated set, almost at an excellent level.
Yeah. Okay, doke. And last but by no means least, feedback. So during the lab sessions, students get some feedback from members of the module team, and they have to respond to that feedback, hopefully in a way that improves their game. So what bits of feedback do they get for this?
And again, they've presented this really clearly in their document. They said, bullet point list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the bits of feedback, and then a paragraph after each one saying what they did about it. So starting with how can the difference between a novice and expert player be determined? And the response was adding the star system. So there are ways of tracking whether a player does well or does badly at solving the level design. Second bit, decide whether it's a puzzle or a race, and stick to it. And they have obviously decided that it is a puzzle. They decided not to implement a timer, because that would make it more like a race type game. Lean into the core dynamic of spatial reasoning. So they were making sure that all of the mechanics that they had already implemented do actually contribute to spatial reasoning. And then it sounds like they also chose some new dynamics further that emphasize the spatial reasoning afterwards. Their fourth bit, in the level design, don't try and outwit the player, try and make them feel smart. And this was about trying to get the pacing correct and get the difficulty right, looking for a sweet spot where it's challenging enough to feel rewarding and not so challenging that players give up, which is a particularly difficult thing to do in puzzle games, right? You have lots of different players, and some players will find it easier than others. How do you make it fun and interesting for everyone? Well, they said mostly what they did was they did lots of playtesting. They got their friends to tell them whether or not they thought it was too easy, too hard. I'll also say for them that because they've generated lots of levels, this is the final level, number 12, they've also done a good job there, because having those levels 3 and 4 that you found really easy, maybe another player needed those little extra bits just to reinforce it. So they've done quite a good job in that regard. And the last bit is just the straightforward, make sure that you tutorialize as you go, don't front load the tutorial. And they did that by putting all the text boxes in the relevant places as you learn and as you go through.
Excellent. So I think if we take a glance at our mark scheme, a good would be that feedback has been addressed and the changes have been successful. It feels pretty solidly at that level. I don't think they've done necessarily anything, super interpretative, like, is it a race to the end? Well, no, so I didn't include a timer, but that's fine. That was a positive change. It's like you say, they maybe could have taken some of these things, like the star, for example, and tied them to other aspects that they might want to, or other behaviors that they might want to encourage the player. But just including the stars does definitely help differentiate, even if it doesn't go as far as it could have. So I think that still hits a pretty solid good right there.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's halfway to excellent, or is it still in the good category?
No, I think it's a pretty solid good.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful.
Okie doke. So that brings us to the end of this game. Let's move on to the next one. All right, and our next game is Untitled, I believe. Yeah, just unknown. So let's hop into it. So I will say this game we're having to play in the editor because we didn't have a working build. So we'll do our best, but if you notice any error messages or anything like that crop up, that's why. So if I hit start, okie doke. Well, we're thrown right into it.
So the camera broadly centers on the white box, so that's a nice bit of subtle information design telling us we're probably the white box and everything else is the environment we're moving around in.
Yep. So we don't have a tutorial about the controls, although I've figured out that space is jump.
Okay.
But I'm not controlling the movement. That's all. So
it's
like an
auto move right.
Yeah, endless runner style. So
Okay.
like a one button platformer. So I've got space to jump.
So. We've seen some of these red triangles now, and I think putting them in a pit made it obvious to me that they must be spikes. The first level, there was just a triangle there. I thought you were going to try and collect it. These ones, again, could be collectible.
So it's interesting that we can effectively, get ourselves stuck and have a little bit of a break. In a lot of endless runners, the camera would just keep scrolling, and if you hit the edge, you die. So again, interesting design choice there.
Yeah, we'll see when we go through what their core dynamic is and how they've implemented it, whether that was an intentional choice for making it more puzzly or a sort of strange side effect.
Because it certainly makes sense for that first level, right? Like, you're thrown into the game and everything starts moving without you, and then you get a second to pause, rest, reflect, figure out what on earth is going on.
Yeah.
That's it. I've been playing that Gravity Switcher game for so long that I was expecting to stick to the wall and run down the other way.
Yeah.
Okie doke. So,
yeah, particularly when you're stuck on something because there's a block to your right, it feels a little bit like gravity must be going to the right, which, given that you're falling to the right, also feels like that.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's how they programmed it, of just by adding gravity in that direction as well.
Yeah, that would be a clever way of doing it. That would give you specifically acceleration to the right as opposed to constant movement to the right. I don't know if that's how you're actually feeling it plays. It might be constant movement.
Scene with build index 4 couldn't be loaded, so I believe this is the last level.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think we start talking. Yeah. So again, in terms of visuals, it's like simple, but it's effective. Like, we can tell what we are, we can tell what the terrain is. After a little bit of trial and experimentation, we can tell what a bad thing is. I don't think there's any audio though, which is a little bit of a shame. Like, again, just slapping a background track on this, like some sort of like trance or
just some electronic. Yeah.
You get a little bit of a like Geometry Dash kind of vibe.
Exactly.
So
sound effect for jumping, sound effect for hitting the spikes. All of these are pretty straightforward to implement.
Yeah, so overall, like, I would say the graphics by themselves are simple but really well put together. They're honestly like quite appealing by themselves. That might hit the excellent level. The fact that there's absolutely no audio at all feels like it's going to drag it down a little bit to maybe somewhere between a satisfactory and a good.
Yeah. Information design is the most interesting part of the thing here. I immediately said the way that the camera moves tells you something, that you're the white block, and that was really nice. But of course, you didn't get anything about the controls, and it also suffers a little bit that there's not many mechanics, so there's not very much to learn. We'll see this in a minute, I guess. But, you have to mash keys until you discover jumping, and then once you've discovered jumping, you've kind of run out of things to learn.
Yeah, so like you say, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But as far as the information design, like you say, information design and graphics, quite good. Let down by the lack of sound effects or music, unfortunately. So I think kind of between a satisfactory and a good there.
Right.
In terms of mechanics, or I guess meaningful play, yeah, we have, well, the player has one mechanic. They have jump. In terms of the mechanics that are present, obviously we do have the infinite running, not infinite scrolling, but automatic scrolling, and we've got some spikes, and I guess we've got some pits as well. But beyond that, not a huge amount. So if we, the controls themselves are pretty fine. I'm just going to take a little breather here while I glance at the mark scheme. So the controls themselves feel fine. Again, the jump feels like pretty tight and nicely balanced. Haven't noticed any bugs, but also just in terms of like the slight lack of content. Again, I know that these are done by individuals, but given these mechanics, it would have been relatively easy to put, like a fourth level together that sort of again has them arranged in a like, even if you kept the exact same mechanics, just arranging them in a slightly more challenging way. But as it is, like, it's certainly playable. But I think that lands us sort of around the satisfactory kind of level.
Yeah. Okay.
Goals, risks, and rewards. The goal is, I mean, pretty clear. You might even say inevitable, because we keep moving right. So the goal is simply not hit spikes, which, as far as goals go, is pretty clear. Risks and reward, not really much in the way of either, because we don't have other than getting to the end of the level, there's nothing that we're like aiming for. We're not trying to do it with the fewest jumps or the fewest deaths or in the fastest time or with the highest score or anything like that.
Yeah, this is the key thing, right? Just because the spikes are dangerous isn't the same thing as them being a risk. The risk means, a calculated choice about taking on danger. This level that we're looking at is probably a perfect example of where, in principle, you might be able to go, top route or bottom route, and the bottom route seems to have spikes and the top route seems to not have spikes. So if the top route was, annoyingly convoluted or something, and so it's slow but safe, and if the bottom route is like a nice shortcut but it's got spikes in it, that's where we would see risk and reward coming in.
Yeah, exactly. So very clear goal. I would say, as far as risks or rewards go, like a very limited set at all, which kind of puts us, I would say, sort of between a pass and a satisfactory for this.
Yeah.
As for the pacing, again, it's a relatively short game, and the last level kind of just infinitely loops. But there is some amount of increasing pacing, right? The first level is very, very, very short, but tutorializes the concept. The second level sort of expands on them. Third level is sort of the trickiest. Although these sections here, it's kind of interesting how they escalate things. So if we jump back into it, get rid of some of this Unity gubbins. So yeah, first one is simply just teaching you the mechanics. Then we've got some more dangerous jumps, but again, still very short. And then the third one is sort of where it's a bit of a longer level and a bit more challenge. But it, like, sections like that, like, so this is kind of the thing that I was pointing at. You've got that sort of jumping section with the spikes, followed by this jumping section with the platforms.
Yeah.
If you'd have flipped these around, that would have been a way more coherent rise in tension, right? Because you've got some jumping, but if I make a mistake here, there's no consequence. In fact, I stop, I wait, I try again. And then if I did it again with the spikes, it's the exact same moment, but now there's more tension, because now I will die if I get it wrong. So, we're kind of between a pour in a pass here, in that there are some variations in tension, but the pattern isn't super coherent. I would be inclined to say, again, keeping in mind the scope, that it probably hits the pass in that it somewhat rises over time. All right, which brings us to tutorial. Now, there isn't a lot in the way of tutorial. In fact, I tell you what I'll do. I will quit this and I will reload it so that we can see the tutorial in its entirety. So we're kind of thrown right into it. There is no explanation of the controls. We kind of figured that out through pressing random buttons effectively.
Yeah, it's an intuitive control for it to be space, but we need to be told that space is the button there.
Now, if I'm being generous, you can make the argument that, overlooking the fact that they don't teach us the controls, we are kind of taught something through level design. Like, the fact that we are immediately hurtling towards the right without having touched a control already sets up, has taught us something about the way the mechanics work. And the fact that they have designed their level so that we get caught in this little niche then gives us a second to stop, absorb it,
it does give us a moment to look across the level. So it's nice we can see the green box there, which we can maybe guess is our goal, both because it's at the end of the level and because green is a nice, happy color. There's that red thing there, which we started thinking it was a collectible, and then we discovered it was spikes. Maybe that's just because it's hovering slightly above the ground. I don't know. Red does at least perhaps say angry and scary.
And we very quickly then sort of, it's not like we hit it and then there's a whole rigmarole of going back to the start. We're right back at the start. We're going straight again. So again, there's no real explicit tutorial element. There's some things that we have gleaned from the way they've designed their level, but really, we're kind of at. So let's take a quick look at the mark scheme. So an absent would be no serious attempt at a tutorial element, which is kind of where we are. But if we're taking this view that the level design does teach you some things by throwing you straight into it, then maybe we can argue that there is some explanation of gameplay and controls, which would put them at the port level, but it's not nothing.
Yeah, I would say there is some. There is not a gradual explanation, which is what we need for a path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Design. So the core dynamic. Now this is a tricky one. I would struggle to pin down a core dynamic for this.
Yep. Shall I read out what they've given us?
Yeah, go for it.
Primary objective of the game, which is not quite the core dynamic, but we'll get to that, is to reach the end of the level without making contact with spikes or colliding with the side of blocks. So the dynamic it creates is a timing-based challenge inspired by Geometry Dash. That's it. So
that doesn't really elucidate a core dynamic either. That is something really inspired by.
It sounds like they might be trying to describe this as a race to the end game, which is certainly one of the things that you could make a case for it being.
And I think it's how I would make a case for it, but it feels like there are a couple of mechanics that are missing to really support that. The fact that it is like an automatic scroller means that as long as I make all of the jumps, I will always complete the level in the same amount of time. I guess unless I stop on one of these blocks. So there's some element of it, but to really emphasize that, you want a timer, right? You want a clock. You want something either counting down or counting up, and then a high score at the end that says, this time you did the level. Or maybe that counter counts up until you beat the level. So it doesn't reset to 0 every time you die. So the more times you die, the slower your time, and therefore you get to the end. So I could definitely see that it is a race to the end game, but I think it might be missing some of the real key mechanics to absolutely hammer that home.
Yep, you can even have a little sprite of some scary thing chasing you, right? Wall of lava or a monster or something. Even if it plays the exact same, it will reinforce what the player should be thinking about as they're playing the game, which is, you've got to go right as fast as possible, i.e. you can't take breaks and stop on these ledges, which currently doesn't have any penalty.
Yeah, so, okay, so I don't think we're at a port. I don't think the primary mechanics detract from it. I think maybe they just haven't added a couple of mechanics that would really help it. Same kind of for a pass. Would you say it's supported by the primary dynamics or not supported?
It's interesting because, stuff including the spikes, it doesn't actually force you to race. It's not making you go faster or slower or something, because you can't choose how fast you're going.
I think that's the problem. I think it's
what this game is actually is a rhythm game, right? It's to hit all the cues at the moment that they are supposed to arrive for you. And so in that respect, it's true that the spikes and maybe the obstacles as well support that timing rhythm dynamic to it. So I would say
even then, I think if you're making the case that it's a rhythm type game, it's still missing a couple of key components. The fact that you can sit here and just wait against a block kind of undermines it. I mean, for a rhythm game in particular, you really need some kind of musical backing track with a particular beat or rhythm or something. So overall, I think this sits maybe between a pour and a pass. There's nothing actively working against the core dynamic. There's just not perhaps enough mechanics that to emphasize which of the core dynamics it could have been, and also partly from the way they've articulated it in their notes, it sounds like they're not quite sure either.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okey-doke.
The last bit of mark scheme then is the section for feedback. Unfortunately, the student has turned in a section that says no feedback, full stop. Obviously,
that's a little bit disappointing because we have many channels for feedback, whether it's the labs or Discord or email. So unfortunately, we have to mark that one down as absent. Okay, other than that, again, for the work of a single person, like they have put together a reasonable game. I think it's something that actually they should probably continue to develop further, because there are some nice features to this, and with a little bit of work and polish, they could actually keep extending it quite well. Okie doke.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. So let's move on to our next one. All right, and our last game for this batch is I don't have a title. Unknown. Yep. Another unknown.
Which might be the title, or might just be not given.
Okie doke. So again, we're having to run this in the editor because we didn't have a working build. So if you notice any pop-ups or anything like that, it's because we're in the editor. Hello there, pilot. Welcome to calibration. To proceed, press enter. To start your calibration, use your left and right mouse buttons to roll the ship. You can also move your mouse, you sure can, to change the direction your ship points in. Ooh. Something odd happened. Oh, okay. Something odd happens at a certain point. I think it's when I go over the horizon, so to speak. My mouse control inverts.
Yeah.
And also the right and left. Right and left is inverted. Ooh, that's a little bit weird. Okay. What was it? Left to rotate left and right to rotate right. Nice that it waits for us to do that before it progresses. Introduce you to your thrusters. WSD gives you up, left, down, and right. Spacebar gives you forward. Each time you hit a key, it'll add extra speed in that direction. Give it a go. Oh, a key is in.
Like this, either you or I is going to get motion sick. But okay, we've got speed in the up direction.
So space is. Uh-oh.
Have you crashed into that wall, or I can't tell?
I also can't tell. I'm holding space. I don't seem to be going forwards, but the number's going up. Oh no, speed red. Speed red, Captain. How do I go backwards? It's not told me how to go backwards.
Presumably you accelerate in the opposite direction. If you were going up, try going down.
But I have no back. I can go up, down, left, and right, but I have no backwards button.
Well, yes. Then you have to turn your camera viewport such that one of the up, down, left, right, or one of the WASD keys will get you away.
That's the problem, you see, because turning the camera is real hard. Okie doke. We don't seem to have progressed through the tutorial, though.
Yeah, so it does say give it a go and see how fast you can get. My hope would be if you go real fast, you'll get to move on. How fast is real fast?
You don't press and hold a key. You have to tap it.
Yeah.
Once you hit above 20, your ship will lose control. Press B for brakes. B, and again, it's not a press and hold. It's tap to stop. Okay.
It did say if you press it multiple times, you'll go faster and faster.
Yes. Feel free to get used to the controls. If you bump into a wall, you can stabilize yourself using brakes. Okay. Yep. But I have a suspicion that this might be all there is to it.
Okay. So, well, certainly you can fly around. Is it going to automatically move on after some time, or after you've gone into one of the corners or something? Obviously, because it's in the editor, you can technically find out whether or not there are any levels hidden behind. But for now, we'll play around and see.
This is the only scene, as far as I can see.
This is the only scene. Okay.
So we'll see if it progresses. And I guess while I fly around and bump around, we will start talking about the mark scheme.
Yeah, graphics, audio, and information design are at the top. Let's start with audio. I can't hear anything. Is there audio somewhere?
Not that I can hear, no.
Yeah, okay.
Graphically, well, like it's a reasonable asset pack that they've used. We are just in a cube.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the walls of the cube all have different textures, so that kind of helps keep us oriented a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll get onto this when we talk about controls. The problem is once we look at the ceiling, my mouse controls are now completely inverted because I'm upside down. But I can't tell that I'm upside down because everything is just a flat grey wall.
Well, the nature of being in space is that you don't have a down or something. So it's a problem kind of with the setting is going to inevitably make your controls kind of a little difficult to use. In terms of other graphical things, they do have these pop-ups with dialogue and things. I think they're default fonts, which is slightly a shame. I'm sure you could have found a spacey kind of suitable font.
The fact that they've put it in a spacey dialogue box, even if the font's the same, that's fine. They've made an effort there.
It might have helped it for having like thrusters or something. Our ship doesn't look any different when you're going in different directions and things. And given that this game is all about that movement in space, it might have been kind of important information design for us to know which way we're firing our
that was exactly what I was going to say. And in fact, the fact that it lists our speed isn't necessarily super helpful because what we need is our velocity.
Yes. Yeah, the fact that the speed translating to the velocity, i.e. learning the direction as well as the actual magnitude of that velocity, only comes from being able to see whether we're approaching a wall. And as you've mentioned, because seeing the walls relies on the slightly unintuitive mouse movement, it's quite hard to actually gauge that.
Yeah. Okay, so there's no sound. The information design is a little bit lacking, and that's kind of exacerbated by some of the graphics. The graphics themselves are like thematic and reasonably nicely put together, but because all of the textures are like relatively similar, it's not like we have a maybe it doesn't make much sense for space, but having a horizon indicator like you do in a plane or something like that to know which way you're facing.
Yeah, it's notable that they've put us in a box as opposed to put us in a solar system where there's some fixed stars on the background, or actually sun that is the kind of defining feature of the space that you can always orientate yourself against. So whereabouts in the mark scheme do we think it might hit the simplistic but many inconsistent elements, or do we think it's effective but some inconsistencies?
I think, again, because of some of the like simple and slightly not inconsistent but maybe difficult elements, it's kind of almost a poor, maybe between a poor and a pass.
Yeah, some of them are poorly chosen elements, some of them are chosen well enough but it's inconsistent,
and some of them are just missing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So given that it seems like we have seen the whole game, I can't find another scene with another level beyond this. I think we move on to the rest of the mark scheme as well.
Yep.
Where are we? So mechanics, controls, and bugs. Yeah.
Controls we've said are challenging. I don't think we've seen any bugs unless we specifically call the orienting thing so difficult to use that it's buggy rather than just unintuitive. Mechanics is limited. There's very little mechanics going on.
Really, even considering this is the work of one person, I feel like unfortunately we're kind of at the poor level just because of a combination of different things. Like there's that there is not much content. The mechanics are relatively limited. The controls are very, very difficult.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think unfortunately that probably hits a poor.
Yeah, honestly, the absent level says no real gameplay,
Yeah,
and we've got ever so slightly more than no gameplay at all. You know, you can
exactly.
fly around. That's all you can do.
This is me taking that into account.
Yeah, exactly. So I think
Uh,
you're right that it's at the poor level.
However, I think for the other things, we're going to run up against the same issue of there's a limited amount of game on display here, unfortunately.
Yep. So the next bit is goals, risk, rewards, and we'll say the same thing, right? What's the goal? I think the only thing that you can do is fly around. The goal is presumably fly around a bit, but not to reach a specific place, not to, I don't know, deliver some cargo, not to fly through some hoops. It's not a time trial. There's not an obvious goal. And risk reward rise, there certainly aren't any risks or rewards because there aren't actually any choices about what you're doing. It's not like going into one of the corners is dangerous but better for achieving some goal because we haven't really got a goal.
Yeah. So it feels to me like this is close to the absent level, although they do have some some small goals over the course of the tutorial of use your movement in this direction, use your brakes, and so on. So I'd be inclined to say this probably hits between an absent and a poor.
Yeah, I think if I'm being generous, I can generate a goal for it, which is go as fast as you possibly can inside this box without crashing. If that's the goal, then through the tutorial, we're told you can go faster and faster and faster, and then you're going to crash, so you've got to slow down again. Let's say that the goal is reach the maximum possible speed in this constraint box. Then we have, some very basic goals, right? Yes, that puts us between the absent and the poor, or at the poor.
Between absent and poor, I think.
Yeah.
Pacing wise, same kind of a thing. We've got some limited set of minor goals over the course of the tutorial that gradually increases the tension somewhat, but I think overall the pacing is quite flat. We are flying around in a cube with limited instruction.
Yep, as from the observer's point of view, what you're doing now seems exactly the same as what you were doing at the start of the game, which would imply flat pacing.
So I think that hits probably at an absent. Tutorial-wise, we have got a tutorial. So we've got some explanation of gameplay and controls. It is revealed as we play. Is it aligned with play? It's not like there. So as you kind of rightly mentioned, if they had some hoops for us to fly through to learn how the thrusters work or something like that, that would be aligning it with play. So I think tutorial-wise, I think they've hit a pass. They're explaining the controls gradually to give us a chance to try each of them out before we move on to the next one. Maybe, if I'm being a little bit generous, I would say it goes between a pass and a satisfactory, because they give us they've given us space to try these controls out, and the tutorial doesn't progress until we've demonstrated that we know how to use our brakes and so on.
Yeah. Likewise, if I'm being generous, I invented the goal of go fast as you can, and the tutorial kind of gets you to that point, right? Like it starts with just move around a bit, and then it gets you to move really fast, and then it gets you to use the brakes to stop. And if it were true that the goal was, sprint, then this tutorial would be aligned with that gameplay.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? As we've already said, there isn't much gameplay to align it with. We're kind of in a sandbox cube, but there's no directional goals through which they can then use to teach us. So I think it hits, again, if I'm being generous, between a pass and a satisfactory.
Yeah.
Core dynamic. Have they described what their core dynamic would be for this game?
Their description says it's a combination of spatial reasoning and race to the end, brackets, though the race to the end has not been implemented.
Okay, that makes sense. I can see this turning into either of those games. You could absolutely take these, this core set of mechanics and flesh that out into a core dynamic where you have, a room that you're trying to puzzle your way through by using your different thrusters carefully to navigate, or one where you're just trying to hurtle through a number of checkpoints or gates or waypoints to get to the end as fast as possible. But they haven't used those mechanics to fulfill that dynamic.
And quite importantly, they've said two things: spatial reasoning and race to the end. What you've described is two interesting ways the game could go, either where spatial reasoning is the core dynamic and race to the end might support, or where race to the end is the core dynamic and spatial reasoning might support. In this feedback document, either we would expect to see a game that does one of those things really well, or at the very least, we'd expect you to tell us, the game that I was planning to do was going to be a spatial reasoning game. That's going to be the core dynamic. I'm not using race to the end as a core dynamic. I'm going to use it as a supporting dynamic, and here's why. I think it's a little bit problematic that we've been told some aspect is spatial reasoning and some aspect is race to the end, but not really clear about why either of those things and which one really is the core dynamic.
Yeah, particularly when those things are not realized in the game. They might have been a plan for the final design, but again, there's no goal to speak of, so there's no dynamic to build around. So I feel like, again, we kind of have to put it at the absent level there. Okay. Great. In terms of feedback, have they reported any feedback that they were given, or any changes that they have made?
They have reported that they have not received feedback.
Okay.
So no.
Again, bit of a shame. So again, that has to get an absent. Okay, so overall, like, obviously, could a solid foundation for a game. Like, the mechanics that they've got are a little bit tricky. I think with a little bit of polish, they could buff out some of those rough edges with particularly the sort of camera movement and so on. And then it wouldn't take much to add a couple of mechanics in order to give a little bit of challenge and goal to this as a game. In fact, as we've already discussed, you could take it in a number of different directions, like race to the end, racing through a course or something like that. I think that would work quite well. So I do hope that they take this and they do keep building on it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, which does bring us to the end of this video. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.